This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Check out Squarespace through the link in the description below. More on them in a bit. With the mighty River Thames snaking through it, London has many iconic buildings, some of which cross the river itself. None of these bridges are more eye-catching than Tower Bridge. With its ability to open up to let passing ships through, its technologies were beyond ambitious for their time and are still used to this day. This icon of Victorian engineering sits next to the medieval castle of the Tower of London, the futuristic glass motorcycle helmet of the Mayor's office. 3 eras of the city's history are encapsulated in this one area. And today, Tower Bridge. At the end of the 19th century, commercial development in the East End of London had increased. There was demand from traders and the public for a new river crossing downstream from London Bridge. The traffic situation on London Bridge had become so bad that during a 2-day survey conducted in August 1882, it was found that London Bridge's traffic was 22,242 vehicles and 110,525 pedestrians in a 24-hour period. With the population of London at the time being nearly 5 million people, this amount of congestion in one area was unsustainable and threatened trade in the newly developed East End. To alleviate this congestion, options were looked at, such as widening London Bridge, but this was seen as too costly and would cause further disruption. Finally, it was decided that a new bridge would be needed closer to the East End of London. However, building a new bridge would be difficult. A traditional fixed bridge at street level would not be viable due to the disruption of river traffic, effectively cutting off access by sailing ships to the port facilities in the Pool of London, a stretch of water between London Bridge and the Tower of London. With this huge challenge laid out in front of them, the City of London Corporation, the metropolitan governing body of the City of London, formed in 1876 the Special Bridge or Subway Committee to generate ideas. They thought the best course of action would be to hold a competition to see if anyone had a workable solution to their bridge problem. The committee, chaired by Sir Albert Joseph Altman, had over 50 entries submitted. One of these was from civil engineer Sir Joseph Bazalgette, whose CV included designing London's sewage system. However, his bridge design was rejected because of a lack of sufficient headroom for passing ships. Other designs included were low-level bridges which would have blocked the trade ships from passing underneath, duplex bridges with a lock gate system allowing for road and river access simultaneously. Also, there were bridges with a rolling road opening to let ships through. After many rejections, a design was finally approved in 1884. The design by architect Sir Horace Jones, who also happened to be one of the competition's judges, opted for a bascule bridge, which comes from the French word for seesaw. Essentially, a bascule bridge is a type of drawbridge which works on a pivot with a heavy weight at one end to balance the length of the other end. The architects and engineers agreed the bascule design was the most viable, causing the least disruption to pedestrians and road traffic. It consisted of 2 piers and a central opening span. Once raised, this would allow for river traffic to pass through, while high-level walkways would provide continued access to pedestrians. The design may have been improved, but it looked slightly different to how the bridge does today. Boasting a big arch where the high-level walkways are now located, the design needed some refinement so it could serve both pedestrians and river traffic before construction could begin. Sir John Wolfe Barry was appointed engineer serving with the architect Sir Horace Jones. Barry also appointed his friend Henry Mark Brunel as assistant engineer. Now that surname might sound familiar to you. Henry was the son of Isambard Kingdom Brunel, who knew a thing or two about bridges himself. Side note here, the engineer of Tower Bridge was the youngest son of Sir Charles Barry, who designed the Houses of Parliament. In November 1885, the design of Tower Bridge was finalised and a bill was presented to the UK Parliament to allow construction to begin. The bill contained many elements, from the size of the bridge to its location and who would be responsible for its operation. It specified that the opening span of the bridge would provide a clear width of 200 feet, that's 61 metres, and headroom of 135 feet or 41 metres when the bridge was open. However, once construction began, these measurements were exceeded by 5 feet or 1.5 metres and 6 inches or 15 centimetres respectively. The site chosen for Tower Bridge, just north of the Tower of London, is in an area surrounded by wharves. The areas where ships could be moored to load and unload. This location was chosen due to access to the Pool of London. The area had been used since Roman times for ships carrying goods to be loaded and unloaded. As for the design of Tower Bridge, the bill stated that the design had to be in style in keeping with Victorian London, a Gothic style similar to the Houses of Parliament. Whilst the brickwork would maintain visual continuity with the Tower of London, other parts of the bill concerned the running of the bridge and contingencies if the bridge failed. One way of alleviating danger from the river traffic was that a tugboat should be stationed at the bridge at all times to assist any vessels in danger when crossing the bridge. This requirement stayed in place until the 1960s. Once the bill was passed and the Tower Bridge Act was signed into law, it regulated the bridge's use, something which it still does to this day. Construction of Tower Bridge began in 1886, with the first job being to lay the foundations of the piers. Before work could commence on the building of Tower Bridge, the area the bridge was to cross had to be surveyed, leveled, and prepared. This process involved the lowering of large metal cages called caissons. These were lowered into where the piers would be built in the Thames. These caissons created a barrier between the river and the worksite. Once the caissons were in place, divers would work within them. It was a time-consuming process of excavating the clay, mud, and gravel that made up the riverbed. Much of this was done by shoveling the exhumed material onto a crane that hoisted the removed material on shore. As the excavating progressed over the next 3 years, the caissons sank inch by inch into the clay under their own weight. When they had reached a depth of 19.6 feet or 6 meters, the water in the caissons could be pumped out and work on the piers could begin. Due to the skill required to set the foundations and the prestige of the project, only the best in the world would do. 6 of the best divers at the time were employed, led by Quaker friend Samuel Penny, who specified that he had his own daughter operate the air pump for him during his excavation of the foundations because he trusted no one else to do it. The other divers were John William Bateman, Thomas Kluker, Stephen Knott Fry, James Rouse, and James Thacker, who are now memorialized by a bronze plaque inside the North Tower of the bridge. Now, just before we continue with today's video, a quick word from our sponsor, Squarespace. So, it's still early in the year, still time to make 2022 the year that you take the next steps on that big web project that you've been thinking about. Fortunately, Squarespace gives you all of the possible tools that you would need to make your dream into a reality. Whether it's a small business, a sports blog, creative portfolio, or just a page full of excellent memes, it doesn't matter. If you can dream it, you can build it with Squarespace. Are you looking to get in and out quick without thinking too much about what your website should look like? Bam! Use one of their quick, beautiful templates to make a website that's fresh and for you, like it's right out of the box. Or maybe you're more of a hands-on person. You've got lots of opinions and ideas about what exactly your site should look like. Well, Squarespace gives you all of the customization options you could ever want with no updates, no patches, no technical BS to worry about. And once you're done setting up your website, tinkering with the design if you're so inclined, or maybe just playing with the colors, there are so many extra features that Squarespace provides so your website can thrive. Email campaigns, patronage portals, social integration, member-only areas, analytics, commercial options, 24/7 customer support. Everything you need really is in one place. So when you're ready to get started on the next web project of yours, big or small, go with Squarespace. Right now, you can head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch your new site, go to squarespace.com/megaprojects to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. And now back to today's video. Over the course of the next 8 years, construction took place on Tower Bridge. 432 workers were employed over this period, most of them coming from Scotland. Despite being over 300 miles away, the 11,000-ton steel skeleton forming the main structure of the bridge was constructed by the Scottish civil engineering company Sir William Arrol & Co, based in Glasgow. This company had built some of the UK's most famous bridges, including the Forth Bridge and the Tail Rail Bridge. Skilled, experienced labour was essential in such a project. It was essential that no expense was spared when it came to that. It's because of the high number of experienced bridge builders working on Tower Bridge, which has been credited for the reason that so few injuries took place during construction. However, building such a project doesn't come risk-free, and 10 workers lost their lives during building. Nevertheless, this is still a low number considering the time frame and the number of workers involved. The 11,000 tons of steel framework of Tower Bridge may be remarkable, but most of it's hidden beneath the iconic stonework. It's made from 235,000 cubic feet of Cornish granite and Portland stone and backed with traditional brickwork. A staggering 31 million bricks make up Tower Bridge. This masonry was used specifically to complement the Tower of London just north of the bridge. But not all that steel was covered. Beside the towers of the bridge is the striking steel suspension, with an estimated 3 million rivet holes drilled into it to keep the bridge held up and anchor the bridge to the banks for the bascules to work. Tower Bridge doesn't just rely on deep foundations and a steel frame to stay upright, but it is part suspension bridge. These thick chains also help keep the bridge upright and take the strain off when it's raised for passing ships. Originally painted chocolate brown, not the most desirable color, but one which fitted its surroundings at the time, it has received several paint jobs over the years. Notable times were during the Queen's Silver Jubilee when it was painted red, white and blue. Now it sports a vibrant blue and white color scheme. As I said, the bascule design allowed ships to pass through by allowing the bridge to split in two. To attain this, the bridge needed some big engines. Sir William Armstrong had the solution with his new invention, the hydraulic accumulator. But before we go into the complexities of the accumulator, the hydraulics needed powering, and this being the Victorian period, there was only one readily available option. In keeping with the rest of the Industrial Revolution, it was, of course, steam power. This was the energy of choice through most of the 1800s. The London Hydraulic Power Company powered much of London, including cranes, lifts, workshops, theatre machinery, and it was the company that provided power and workers for the bridge. 3 large boilers housed within the towers generated the power for the lifting mechanism. These boilers were continuously fueled by stokers working in 24-hour shifts to ensure there was enough energy available to lift the bridge whenever required. At its peak use, Tower Bridge was opened 20 to 30 times a week. That amount of demand required a staggering 20 tons of coal a week to fuel the fires and the steam to power the large steam pumping engines in the engine room. It resembled a steam train with its bright green and red color scheme, and it ran like one when in motion. The engine's pistons turned a large flywheel, at the same time as powering a set of hydraulic pumps which pushes water into 6 huge storage containers of the hydraulic accumulators. Acting like batteries, storing up the energy by holding the water under high pressure allowed for users to store potential energy and access it when required. In turn, this meant that power was always readily available. When Tower Bridge was required to open, the water was released into the drive engines, powering yet more pistons to turn a set of cogs. These cogs connect to a rack on the back of the bascules, opening them for passing river vessels. Despite the complexity of the system, the bascules only take about a minute to raise to their maximum angle of 86 degrees. Today, the bascules are still operated by hydraulic power, but since 1976, they have been driven by oil and electricity rather than steam. The original pumping engines, accumulators, and boilers are still in the towers, but are merely display pieces in the engine rooms. A consideration for pedestrians was also built into the towers of the bridge. Walkways across the bridge were open to the public, but they closed in 1910 due to lack of use. Another contributing factor was that their relative obscurity made the walkways a place for muggings and assaults to take place. Now the walkways are part of the Tower Bridge exhibition, and as of 1982 were fitted with glass floors for visitors to enjoy the views below them. With the building complete, and once the engines were fitted and tested, it was now time for the bridge to open up. On June 30th, 1894, after a total cost of £1.184 million, the equivalent of £136 million today, Tower Bridge was finally opened by Prince Edward and Princess Alexandra of Wales in a grand celebration. Also in attendance were the Lord Chamberlain, Lord Carrington, and the Home Secretary, H.H. Asquith. But not in attendance was the original architect, Horace Jones. He died a year into construction and never got to see his bridge, the momentous achievement in civil engineering and architectural design, in all its glory. Upon its completion, the bridge was considered the largest and most sophisticated bascule bridge ever made. You may presume that there's some sort of toll for opening the bridge, but there isn't. As per an Act of Parliament, passing through Tower Bridge is toll-free. Also, there's 24 hours notice given before the bridge is raised. Although Tower Bridge is undoubtedly a landmark, it hasn't always been seen as one. In the early 20th century, several people were critical of its aesthetics, with architect Henry Heathcote Statham writing, "It represents the vice and tawdriness and pretentiousness and a falsification of the actual facts of the structure." Roughly translating, he said, "I don't like how it looks and I think it's over-engineered." Another criticism came from Welsh artist Frank Brangwyn, stating that a more absurd structure than Tower Bridge was never thrown across a strategic river. Sick burn. There haven't always been smooth crossings over the bridge. It had been repeatedly targeted by German bombers during the Second World War, sustaining damage to its walkways, bascules, and knocking out the engine room. A third engine was installed after this as a backup, but became redundant when the system was modernized in 1974. It has survived bombings and even eccentric pilots flying their planes through the towers over the years. One of these was Frank Miller, who in 1951 flew his plane through Tower Bridge. Although he was not the first to do this, his excuse was somewhat bewildering. Miller blamed it on his 13-year-old son, saying that he had dared him to do it for 35 shillings, that's around £30 in today's money. Unfortunately for Frank, this did not cover the £100 fine that he got in court. However, the next year would see one of the most infamous incidents occur in the history of the bridge. On the 30th of December 1952, bus driver Albert Gunter was happily driving his number 78 red double-decker bus on his usual route across Tower Bridge. As he was making the crossing, heading south, something unexpected occurred. The road appeared to be moving up in front of him. The bridge was opening. The usual process would have been the gateman ringing the warning bell and closing the gates when the bridge was clear before the watchman ordered the raising of the bridge. This process failed while a relief watchman was on duty. As the bus was nearing the edge of the south bascule, it started to rise. Albert made a split-second decision and slammed his foot down. The diesel engine roared and the bus made a daredevil jump across. The clearing was a mere 3 feet or 0.9 meters, but the drop to the other bascule was 6 feet or 1.8 meters. Landing with a thud, the bus was intact and all 20 of the passengers made it safely. As a precaution, all of them were taken to hospital. There were no serious injuries, however, there was one. Poor Albert had broken his leg. Albert Gunter was given £10, the equivalent of £290 in 2019, by the City of London Corporation to honour his act of bravery, and he also got a day off work. A less dramatic incident happened in May 1997. During the presidential visit of US President Bill Clinton, his motorcade was divided up by the opening of the bridge. The Thames sailing barge Gladys, on her way back to a gathering at St. Catherine's Docks, arrived on schedule and the bridge opened for her. Returning from a Thames-side lunch at Le Point de Tour restaurant with UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, President Clinton was less punctual and arrived just as the bridge was rising. The bridge opening split the motorcade in two, much to the consternation of the security staff. A spokesman for Tower Bridge is quoted as saying, "We tried to contact the American embassy, but they wouldn't answer the phone." Throughout its history, Tower Bridge has become an icon of London, a staple in an ever-changing skyscape of a city constantly under construction. It makes many appearances in films and television shows. Whenever there's a drone shot of London, one of the images that will tell you you're in London is one of Tower Bridge. In recent memory, Tower Bridge was a focal point for the 2012 London Olympics. The Olympic rings were suspended from the towers, and it was also involved in the opening ceremony. Furthermore, the bridge has inspired architects around the world. In fact, in the Chinese city of Suzhou, there is a replica of Tower Bridge. The bridge can still make headlines as well. In 2021, Tower Bridge's bascules got stuck open and the fault was not able to be fixed for 12 hours, bringing considerable traffic chaos to that part of the city. It's even part of a myth. There's a tale that Tower Bridge was bought by an American tycoon who thought he was buying Tower Bridge, but in fact just bought London Bridge, but that's not true at all. It's just a myth. Revered throughout its time, it's now a symbol of London. This is more than just a bridge, it's a piece of history. So I really hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe. If you've got a suggestion for a future Mega Projects video, please do let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching.